Welcome to another episode of the cut content of Spec Ops The Line. This is going to be a shorter one, but it's still an interesting insight into the development of the game and the planned post-release content. We'll be tackling the DLC 2 and DLC 3, the two multiplayer DLCs planned for Spec Ops that never got released. We already touched on them in a previous episode because some of their leftovers references are still in the game files, and we know some details about what they would have contained. But recently, a friend of mine helped me look through SteamDB, and I discovered that there are listings for these DLCs. They got far enough at least to have some entries present for when it would eventually be released and made purchasable. So we at least know the names of them, and we know that they had gotten far enough to have store listings ready. For reference, DLC 2 of Spec Ops, which would have been after the co-op challenge DLC, the free one, it would have contained the modes Offline and Spoils of War for multiplayer. Both of those are cut content, and we have some leftovers for both of them in the files, including models for the Spoils of War loot. DLC 3 would also contain cut content that's being restored for multiplayer, the mode Delivery and the mode Chopper Attack. Delivery was more of a Counter-Strike-like mode where one team defuses a bomb and the other tries to plant it. Chopper Attack involved getting coordinates for an attack helicopter to go after. Spoils of War was about collecting loot and returning it to your base, and Offline was about taking control of different beacons and turning them off as necessary. The SteamDB page. Spec Ops The Line is listed as App 50,300, and it has specific depots for the DLCs, and this includes the pre-order Fubar DLC and the co-op challenge DLC. The pre-order DLC is listed as Depot 203181, and the co-op DLC, the free one, is 203180. This leaves three other depots, which are 203186, then 187, then 188. Those are DLC 2, 3, and 4, respectively. They don't contain anything, unfortunately, but they do have names, and we can gather some things from that. DLC 2, on the SteamDB page, is referred to as the Devastation Multiplayer Pack. The release date for it is left unknown. It's unclear if it would have been free DLC or if it would have been purchasable. DLC 3 would be called the Sandblasted Multiplayer Pack. Like the previous one, it's DLC for Spec Ops. It's unknown if it would have been purchasable or free, and the release date was left unknown. And that leaves DLC 4, which is just listed as single-player DLC, and it does not have a release date. That most likely was the Adams DLC, Long Way Home, and that I've covered in a previous video. But it is nice to know that all three of these projects had listings, that they were going forward with making them, or at least they had plans to before they shelved it. Now, another game from 2K had an issue like this, The Darkness 2, that had DLC planned, and it has a DLC option in its menu, but nothing was ever released for it. Spec Ops had a couple pieces, Fubar and the co-op challenges, but it didn't get the additional packs that were listed here. So my guess is that they were on the table, and when 2K saw the game wasn't selling enough to its liking, they shelved the idea. But the intention was there. They were going to do two multiplayer packs, which were Devastation and Sandblasted. Then they were going to do a single-player DLC, which probably would have been the Adams DLC we've heard about. A shame they didn't come to fruition, but I wasn't a big fan of multiplayer. If it had brought in bots, maybe I would have played it more. Which the problem is it's tough to set up a game, and since there isn't room for a lot of players, it kind of makes it tough to keep an active player base going outside of setting up events and parties and things like that. Would have liked to have been able to at least see it in action, though. I think that the third DLC would have been cooler. Chopper Attack sounds like a really fun mode. And Delivery, I would like to see the gameplay of Counter-Strike translated into Spec Ops. I think it's doable. The pacing seems about right. Delivery would be fun, I think. Spoils of War could be good, and there's a lot already in place for it. It just doesn't really work on its own. Offline's more of a mystery to me, so I don't know how that would have turned out. But it would have been cool to see in action. And you already know that I would have loved to have seen the Adams DLC be made. But that's in the past now. What's done is done. It's just nice to see a little more inklings of what it would have entailed. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Cut Content of Spec Ops The Line. Hope you all have a great day.